Many.
Okay, we're live.
Cool.
And now recording on the cloud. Okay, we cannot meet everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. Happy to see you. Happy to have you here in our 4th day of PowerSkills Virtual Career Summit, Transformation Edition. My name is Diana Viola. I'm the Communications Associate at Career Advising and Transition Services at McGill, the School of Continuing Studies. I would like to introduce you to my colleague, Nayo Gariepi. Say hi, Nayo.
Hey, hi, everyone.
Career Advisor at McGill School of Continuing Studies, and he will be co-moderating this session, helping out with the chat and supporting Chess, our speaker of the day, throughout this session. He will also present, introduce her properly in a minute. But before we get there, I would like to share a message with you. McGill University is on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst indigenous peoples. We respect their territory, and we will start this session with a land acknowledgement. So please, we appreciate that you keep your microphones closed while we play the video.
Thank you, Diana, for this great video. And I know that many of you, which I already saw in other session, just wanted to say that we are making sure that each session pays respect to the land and communities on which we are, because we are lucky to be on their land. And also, this is more than just an intro to our sessions. We encourage you to learn how you can do the same for your meetings, your webinars, and events by sharing an excellent resource that I'll add in the chat shortly, that will give you a little bit more knowledge about how to do one properly. And of course, connect, confirm with the local indigenous community, nonprofit organization who will help you along the way. So thank you. So as my colleague said, my name is Nagariepi. I'm a career advisor with the CATS team. And today we have the honor to have Chess here with us talking about how to be creationally freed. And among many other work and initiatives, she works with entrepreneurs, artists, activists, and large organizations who want their global thought leadership to carry an impact and a capacity for social transformation that are radically heightened and determining in their industry-making essence and agency. So please welcome quietly Chess for her amazing presentation. Your turn, Chess.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And super happy to see you all. I see you, Alice, in the chat. And so this section is going to be interactive, and I'm really honored to be here with you. I'll be sharing my presentation. I'm really happy to share it with Diana and Nayo so that you guys can have access to it and focus on what is said and exchange instead of trying to write down everything for your own benefit. So thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. And I'm very excited for us to get into this together. So as we shared, originally it's looking at creational freedom as a means for us to develop and implement a higher standard of innovational intelligence. And what it means truly for me is whomever we are, we carry privileges and positionalities and powers. And how do we harness that from the spirit of creational energy, and then get to implement that into, across industries, across different spaces that we have access to, and then generate something that is bigger than ourselves and start building towards, impact and social transformation. And so that's my invitation to you today, and we're going to break it down together. And so my reframing is how to be creationally free, how to be creationally freed, and learning how to deploy transdisciplinarity to instate purposed, innovational brilliance and intelligence. So when I break it down, because those are big words, the idea is what? At the core, everybody carries the capacity to be creationally expended. We're not institutionalized or conditioned to believe so. Therefore, a lot of our limiting beliefs, when they meet structural biases, they become reality. But there's a way out and beyond that. So when you look at transdisciplinarity, it's looking to what other people do in different parts of the world, different industries, different communities, and then drawing from that to go back to our own world, our own communities, our own industries, organization, place of work, being powered differently, carry their voices, and then be able to transcend the norms that we have set for ourselves. And that's how we go from creativity to innovation, and how we bridge worlds and bring and manifest impact and transformation. And so as we do that, we bring impact not only to our own local spaces, but also to transnational spaces and transnational communities. So that's what I'm here to do with you today. I'm very excited. And as I said, this is a conversation, and you will be prompted at different instances to share your thoughts so that everything that is shared and imparted can be tailored to your life, to your circumstances, so that you are fully empowered in everything that you do, in everything that you are, to be the change that you want to see happen across spaces. And so, as Nayo and Diana set forth, I always start with land. Land and geography and territory is so vital to everything that we do. And as we were explaining, an acknowledgement is just a beginning, and it's not a gimmick or tool. It's truly how we shift within the stature of everything that we are and carry. So for me, being part of an Afro-Indigenous community, living on unceded Indigenous territories and stolen lands, I look at that as a place of richness. The points of contact between different peoples, different cultures, different languages is how we accelerate and expand human intelligence, period. And I'm here to look at this with you. And I know that we're all international in many ways, international students, immigrants, and we all have our own legacies. So how do we look at our own path as a way to think and act transculturally on a global level? And so when we start with land, when we start with geography, with that acknowledgement that those are lands that we benefit from, that are indigenous to different peoples, where do we go from there? And to me, it's important to dig into the histories and the legacies of those lands and peoples and learn how are they living outside of our own norms. What is normal to them and that is normative to us, and how can we learn from this? What do I mean by this is when you dig into history, you learn about different knowledges. And let's say I am doing translation work. Okay, I study translation in an institution. I get to see different cultural practices of how translation exists in different countries, different communities. So when I go back to my world, I'm empowered with those knowledges, and I get to act innovationally because my norms are enhanced by other cultures, other communities, and other voices, and I carry them forward into my work. And so that's how you get to learn from insurgents, counter institutions that different Afro-Indigenous and Indigenous communities already have established. And that's how you enhance your own baseline of knowledge. And so when we dig more into this, there's a thing I love to call transdisciplinary intelligence, is this idea that, let's say you work for one organization, you have the one task, you work for a company or a department or a unit, and you have an assignment. There's a norm and a standard that is already preset for you before you walk into the room. Now your power in being creationally free, self-aware, and system-aware is, what in this can I challenge? What is enhanceable in that paradigm? What are the voices that are denied, that are historically missing? And how, in my capacity then to integrate those missing pieces, can I create something that is new, this form of innovation, but that also sustains, social transformation? And so a lot of transdisciplinary intelligence for me is the fluidity and the depth. I'm fluid because I am learning how to integrate different voices, different realities within one space. And in so doing, I add more depth in terms of how we learn to be and work together. So an innovation for me has a purpose. It's not innovation for the sake of innovation. It's really how do we get to elevate the standard of human life, the standard of human condition in that part of the world. And the beauty of it is that you can implement it at a micro level. It sounds big because the vision is overarching, but there are ways that you can implement it in step by step. And that's what we're here to look at today together. And so as you do that, I see you defeat the void, because everywhere where there's a lack of diversity, a lack of representation, there is a void that's waiting to be claimed. And you get to be part of the answer of how we get to supersede that void. And that's how your creational spirit becomes innovation, becomes impact. And so that's what I'm here to do with you today. And as I said, I want this to be a conversation. So the first part is going to be, let's say, a masterclass. I'm just going to break down what I mean and give you concrete examples. And then we're going to spend as much time as possible in a breakout room and then in conversations. So this way you get to implement the knowledges and think back about yourself. So how do I fit in this conversation? How is this relatable to my life? How do I get to be enhanced by those knowledges and by that new way of looking at innovation? And so, as always, I like to start with you because this is a conversation, as I said, and I'm curious about your purpose. What drew you to this space, to this conversation today? And I'm curious to know what creativity means to you. So I'm going to have a quick prompt and I will break it down for you before I show you the platform. It's very simplistic. So you're going to have two questions that are going to be asked of you. The first one, as I said, is basically, what brings you here today? What are you here to learn? And then the second question is, what is creativity to you? What does it mean to you when you hear that word? What does it inspire you to do? And so I will be sharing my screen in a second, the next slide, and you will be prompted to open up a tab on your device. And if you can't, don't worry, feel free to react in the chat. For those of you who can, just share directly on the platform. So you're going to have the website. It's www.menti.com, and you're just going to have to copy paste the code. Then you're going to see the same question, and all you have to do is answer where you're prompted. As you do so, you're going to be able to see what I see here, and your answers are going to generate a word cloud. And then we get to see everybody's answers across a continuum. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute just to think about this and be very intentional in how you answer. And from that place, I'm going to pick my way through all of your answers, and I will help you look at yourself from a different perspective, and then bring this back to the bigger conversation of how do we generate innovational intelligence with the intent of being socially transformative in our industries, in our careers, and the work that we get to do and love. So as I said, I'll be quiet for a second so that you can think about your own answer, and then we're going to pick it up from there. Amazing. So as I said, if ever, for whatever reason, there's a lack of familiarity with the platform, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Feel very comfortable just reaching out in the chat as well. If you want to be a bit more experimental and just apply your own sense and capability as a creational spirit, feel free to reach out and just connect on the platform. That also works. So I'll give you a few more seconds, and just get your answers together. And I'm really excited to hear from you too. Amazing. So we have a very courageous soul who just volunteered the first answers. We have a few. So thank you so much, everyone, for reaching out. So I'm going to read them out loud for everybody's benefit. So what brings you here today? What are you here to learn? Someone answered, to learn how to stop self-criticism. Brilliant. Someone else is adding, you and learning how to find my creative side if there is one. Perfect. Interestingly enough, I do find a layer of interrelatedness between the first two answers. So when we are so critical of the self, Oftentimes it's because we presume that there's a lack of a deficit in us, and we tend to overemphasize that. Like, I'm not good enough, for example, this feeling of unworthiness, of being illegitimate. And we question whether or not we have it in us to be the kind of person that, we see, that inspire us, that motivate us. We question if we even have the capability to be creative on any real level. And as someone else is sharing, is imposter syndrome and how to ward it off. Someone else is adding how to convey innovative ideas. Seems simple in your mind, but feels complex when you explain. Beautiful. So part of my ideology, as I said earlier on, is everybody has a creational spirit. But the way that we're conditioned to look at ourselves and to look at intelligence, we don't necessarily feel like we have it in us to be and to do that. So in today's session, it's looking at creativity / innovation as a choice, as a mindset, as an attitude. So it doesn't matter what you're born into in terms of skills. Whatever skills you have, once you have that mindset of, and I'm going to get into my definition of creativity, but once you have that different understanding of it, then the next step is looking around yourself and leverage all the assets that you have to then create your own brand of creativity and innovation. So that's what I'm interested in. So people are sharing how to be more creative in studies and research, on how to better use my creativity to innovate with my colleagues, transfer my creativity across fields, particularly because I'm pivoting into a completely new world. So all brilliantly interconnected answers, right? So as I was saying, no matter who you are and gifts and positionality you have, you are empowered to be creative today. It's all about shifting your mindset. To me, creativity means I have an outcome, I have something I want to see happen, something that looks and feels like change, right? That is not part of the norm, right? And what I do then from that place is everything that I have around me, I mobilize, I leverage differently to get to that. So ultimately, it doesn't matter how I get there, creativity will reveal itself in the process. What matters is that I'm so committed to the vision that I become relentless about making it happen and carrying it through. And I will give you a few examples in a second, so don't worry about that. But I just wanted to clarify this. And as we established, the gift of creativity in our world, where there is divergence and difference and inequity, is that this becomes an act of service and creates impact. If I create something tomorrow and I'm gone tomorrow, is there any change that is sustained for different communities to be more empowered? If the answer is no, then we want to reframe that to make sure that my creativity, my impact translates itself across networks. And I see that many people also have this in mind. How can be creative while we do same work every day? Beautiful thing, beautiful question. So we're going to get to this in a second, and I will make sure to look back to make sure that all your thoughts are conveyed across. So I love this. And I do feel that we kind of touched upon the follow-up question. I'm still going to put it up there to get more out of your brains. So what does creativity mean to you? And do you believe everyone has it? That's the follow-up question. Semi before, take a minute and reflect. And whenever you're ready, feel free to share, and then we can move forward with the conversation. So be silent, let you process, and then we can reflect together. And there are no wrong or right answers. Just be honest, allow yourself to be vulnerable, because then whatever we say would carry more impact for you. So what does creativity mean to you? Amazing. So I'm going to read some of it out loud. I saw someone sharing in the chat, a few people. Thank you so much. So creativity is thinking outside of the box, new idea development. Excellent. The ability to find solutions to a problem or a way to materialize visions and idea when you have limited resources. Brilliant. Thinking differently, going in new places and see things differently. I believe we all have creativity in us, but might be sometimes at different levels. What I love with creativity, as someone outlined, is that it demands restrictions. Creativity means that we live in a system, in a container, and we're told this is the end of what is possible, this is the end of what's feasible. Our vision exists on the other side of that edge. So as a creative thinker, creative mind, we leverage everything we have within a restrained access to resources, and then we make impossible part of a reality. So we contradict the state of the status quo. And more people are adding, doing activities in a different way, constructing new ideas in real life, creating something new, improving what is already there, adding your own flavor, generating ideas. What I love with this is that when I look at creativity, there are things that are new to certain communities that are being historically ancient to others. So the sense of what is new and innovational is really much a shift in perspective. So when you open your world to new languages, cultures, disciplines, industries, a lot of things will be new to you and to your tribe that have been old for centuries to others. So as someone shared, a lot of what innovation is, it's just opening up to other worlds and improving on what was already there. And then you add your own essence, your own uniqueness to that, and it becomes something of purpose. And then, as I was saying, the next level is you look around you, what is missing? What is needed? How can we improve the state of affair, the environment that we're in? Then we look to other industries and other peoples who have figured it out. And then we come back to our own communities empowered with those knowledges. And how do we go, where do we go from there? To be very mindful of appropriation, we work in solidarity and allyship and resistance and accomplishment. So we recognize the ownership of those ideas and we work together so that we can always mobilize our different brands of intelligence together towards a concerted vision. Right? And exactly, everybody has the capacity to be creative because, as I said, is first recognize a problem, then identify that there's a need for a solution, challenge yourself to think and look outside of your own norm and network, encounter other peoples, other worlds, other communities that are very different from yours, draw intelligence from that, create an allyship network, go back to your community and empower everybody. So it's not about who you are as a being in terms of how intelligent or brilliant you are. It's about how committed are you to the vision of being part of the change that needs to happen in your circumstances. So as I said, it's a reframing. And when you're that committed and you're well surrounded, there's nothing that you can do, right? And so that's part of the vision. So thank you everyone for sharing. It's beautiful. And as I said, you're all gonna have access to your own answers. So this way you can keep track of how your mind evolves in this conversation together. So now I'm going to jump into the masterclass part and break down to you the nuts and bolts. Then everybody's going to be informationally aware and empowered in the same way so that now we can transition back to you and see now what is the connection back to what we shared, who you are and what you can do. As always, I love to start my sessions with an energetic commitment. So it establishes how I ground myself in this space. It's basically asking myself the question, how do I want to show up in this instant of possibility? So those are 3 words or 3 expressions that set that intention for myself. I'm going to model it, and then I want you also to do it and share in the chat. And that's a practice that you can also use to channel your own creative energy, because it's never about the ego fragility of who we are as humans. It's about what am I here to do? And you identify with a purpose that is bigger than your own fears of not being enough, of being insufficient. And so for me today, my energetic commitment, how I choose to embody presence and possibility with you, it amounts to, I would say, 3 things. First, I want us to be grounded. To be grounded for me is to fully incarnate presence. So when we talk, we lean in, we're vulnerable, we share, we reflect, we're connected. And then the other thing for me is to be disruptable, is this idea that however smart I can be, I also acknowledge that I don't know all things. And I allow myself to be humbled by things that are not of me, but that it can impact and empower me. So I'm here to discover about new opportunities, new languages, new peoples, new knowledges. And then I circle back around to me and I am heightened. I am all the better for it, ultimately. So I allow myself to be disrupted. And then the last thing to me is anti-oppression. Innovation to me is, as I was saying, is leveraging everything that I have to create the change that needs to happen to impact communities at large. And to do that, to me, it's a very anti-oppressive way of looking at the world. So anti-oppression for me is an accelerating force of human design, intelligence, and innovation. And I'm also inviting you to look at anti-oppression as part of the secret sauce of what makes you creationally powerful as humans. So those are my 3 words, my 3 intentions for us, for me, for this space. I will give you a moment to think about how you choose to show up right now today in this conversation. And then all you're gonna have to do is at every given opportunity, I want you to be and to feel from that place. So sure, maybe I have my insecurities, but I'm committing to leaning into the energy of being grounded, of being together and present with you, of being disrupted by my own norms, by my own fragility, and to think beyond what I know, what is convenient for me. And then I'm committing to the energy of being part of conversation where anti-oppression creates and induces innovation. So that's my purpose today. That's how I choose to show up. I'm giving you a second or 2. Think about 3 words that speak to how you want to be in togetherness and presence with all of us today on the screen. I'll give you a few more seconds, and then we can roll forward together. And for this one, feel free to share in the chat. And it doesn't have to be fancy, 1 or 2 or 3 words. Cap it and then hold it in your mind and your spirit. And as you move forward in the conversation, align yourself with those energies. So if you want to be open-minded, you want to be present, you want to be system aware, you want to be transformative, you want to be creatively enhanced, whatever it is for you, just share that. Thank you. So thank you. Sharing, want to be confident, positive, curious, and courageous. Excellent. Because innovation is daring to do what was deemed impossible by people who didn't change the norm. And so it demands courage, it demands audacity. Somebody I adore, Hassan Minhaj, he talks about having the audacity of equality because we don't live in an equal or equitable world just yet. We can, but we aren't fully there, right? So it takes audacity to be part of the change. Thank you, Everett, for sharing. Open, present, and draw inspiration. Nathalie, listening, sharing, curious. Beautiful. Compassionate. Brilliant. So I'm gonna roll forward and I will always have my eye on the chat so you can reflect as well there and carry that energy forward. Now we get into the good stuff, definitions and breaking it down. And don't worry, as I said, I will be sharing this with you. So please don't copy paste anything, just be present, aware, open, curious, compassionate, and everything else you shared in the chat. And so as I said, it starts with land, it starts with people. So whose lands and legacies am I benefiting from? How can I better honor those legacies and allow myself to be disrupted and enhanced by them? When I look at my ancestry, my lineage of Afro-Indigenous people, creatures of the resistance who created the first free Black republic in the New World, that's my legacy. And in that, there's intelligence, there's innovation. My native language is an act of creation made innovation, the language that my people created to then create the language of their own revolution so that the master couldn't understand us. And then we made ourselves free. So in that history, through language, there is insurgence, there is creation, there is innovation, and there is land. right? It was displaced, kidnapped people on stolen territories that survived genocide and then enfranchised themselves. So when I look at how we function as a community, as a culture, as a language, there are so many things I can draw from that don't exist in that part of the world where I live right now. And so what I do is I bridge worlds, I bridge communities, and I look at what makes it innovationally powerful. And I create a dialogue between them, me, and my community of impact. As I said, let's say you're working in translation, that was my example before, but I can give the example of entrepreneurship. And you live with you work with a certain entrepreneurial community. When you look around you, who is overrepresented and who is historically erased and denied? Whose voices do we never hear centered? And whose voices are dominant or predominant historically? In those two extremes of absence and presence, there is a void. There's something that is never activated in that space. That's where the power of innovation lies. So then my responsibility, my power is then to be part of the person, of the movement who's going to shift the paradigm and bring awareness to the void. And what are we going to do about it? Right? So for example, I've been in many entrepreneurial communities. They're doing amazing work, but I heard nothing about social transformation, global impact, anti-oppression and decolonization, representation, equity, all those different things. So then I started looking at people who are doing this kind of work in activism in other fields, in other countries, across other knowledges. They gave me a sense of what social entrepreneurship could look like in the communities that I work. So in so doing, I was able to shift the paradigm, bring innovation by drawing from other voices of the resistance, different communities that are not represented as centered. And I was able to defeat the void of that industry and be innovationally prominent. And so when you look at creativity, is how we get to exponentialize human intelligence in the space by centering the voices denied, removed, and resistant, as I was saying earlier on. And it starts with land, it starts with territory always. And as you do so, as I said, it's not appropriation, it's collaboration, coalition, solidarity, allyship. So you can speak with other kinds of world leaders. You can speak with other industry makers. You can speak with other profiles of entrepreneurs. You create solidarity. What's beautiful with that is that you're always going to train your mind to think different, right? And a living history is always better than a resource, because you can go back to them, you can create events, you can create resources. Sky is the limit in terms of your capacity to change the world together. And so as you do that, you bridge worlds that historically are not a condition to belong to each other. And then the last step is, how do we get to operationalize this so that it's sustainable, so that it's a system? And that's how you want to go from the local space to then a transnational space, where you activate systems and then you have this collective culture of empowerment as a form of world impact. Practically, it means that you can start with your organization, with your colleagues, and then you start small, local, and you test it out. You see what works, you see what doesn't work. You reach out to other people in other departments that typically don't work together, because you see validity and you see them well positioned to help you solve the gap that is being present. And then you consolidate a practice together. Then the next step is, how do we bring this, now that we know it works, now that we are well practiced in it, how do we expand it further? What is the next step in our scaling strategy, let's say? Then you turn to other communities that have been doing this in different countries, in different provinces, in different universities, and then you reach out. Then you always snowball from that, so that then you can go from a local level to a national level, to a provincial level, to a federal level, to international level. The beauty of the internet is that you don't have to wait that long, and then you have an increase in access. So you can host events like this, and you can have more of an international reach as well. You can broadcast and live stream this to bigger networks of communities, right? So the idea is you start with land and then you end with globality and community. So this is a bit of a reframing. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I'm just going to highlight elements that maybe I haven't centered as much. So particularly as students who come from all over the world and who already have experiences in different countries and different backgrounds, think of yourself as that bridger of worlds. In your culture, what does that kind of practice look like? In your language, in your community, in your industry, what does it look like? What are the things that are done differently? And what can we gain from that difference as a collective? What new points of connection can you create? That's how you get to be part of that innovation, right? So look to what is absent and what is present. And then, as I said, look to what you know, and then shift the paradigm and create impact. The beauty of this is when you have communities and coalitions that are established, you help implement a higher level of wealth across industries. Because targeted universalism tells us that when the unprotected classes, when their conditions are elevated, the conditions of everybody within that space is heightened. So when you take care of the voices that are denied and removed, everybody's condition, irrespective of their privileges, is better for it. So that's how, by catering to something specific, right, by looking to the indigeneity of the lands, looking at the coalition networks, everybody's condition is elevated automatically. And when you have more networks that are activated, you have more riches, you have more knowledges, more intelligence, and more money, more abundance as well. So I want to give you a few examples. And then, as I said, it's all going to be about us implementing this together. There's Hadpa. I love this human, incredible. And Hadpa is a model, actor, indigenous, and environmental rights activist. So remember what I said, Hadpa as a core of activism. And how is Hadpa leveraging this? Looking to worlds where we don't see this type of activism prominent. So looking to modeling. So Hadpa has an Instagram account. So using social media to bring awareness and running awareness through modeling. So the caption, the videos, everything is about using visual culture to then talk about social impact and environmental rights. So taking things that historically are not renowned to
Hey, hi everyone. Just gonna give a minute as I think internet just slowed down. Thank you for your patience. While we're at it, if you have any other question or comments, feel free to add them in the chat.
I think Chess is there. We haven't lost her. She's there.
Yeah, no, she's there, just missing the audio and video.
Oh, well, yeah, internet connection issues. These things happen. So. Okay, she's back. I think.
Oh,
Yay.
back at it. Hey.
Yes, no worries. It's alive, people. It's temperamental.
It happens. Thanks.
No worries. So I was just giving you a few examples, right? I was introducing Hadpa and
Yes. Okay. So
we're gonna get it.
yeah, slowly but surely. I
No
know.
problem. So let me just resume. I think the internet is tired.
If you want, you can send me your slides, and maybe if I share them, it will take some bandwidth out of yours. But so far it was going so well, so
Yeah.
continue also.
Can continue and see. Yeah, go ahead.
Crossing fingers.
Perfect. Amazing. So fingers crossed. And yeah, so Sheldon, she privileges female empowerment, She works predominantly with female racialized entrepreneurs, executives, and leaders. So she's bringing worlds together, right? And then she creates her own brand of innovation, and she has a global network. Her platform is online, and she has her TV show as well. And then she runs her own business where she coaches other female entrepreneurs and board leaders. So this is another example. Then we have Hassan Minhaj. I love him to pieces, and he made history as being the first Muslim Indian American to own his own show, to run it, have a big major deal with Netflix. And what he does is he educates people around global international politics through an entire oppressive lens, and he makes it very digestible because he uses his background in stand-up comedy. So he makes big topic palatable, and he grounds the space with humor, but also with nuance and social transformation in mind. And he shares resources during his event. He also prioritizes, brown people of color, Black, Indigenous, and he has a beautiful coalition network so that he invites different voices as well, and he just brings awareness to different parts of the world. So that's how he chooses to use his platform. Then you have Lena and Peter. Lena is a beautiful human. She's a holistic language coach. Peter is a U.S. Marine, and he's also a transformation coach on spirituality and meditation and yoga. And so the two together, they have their own agency, and they offer incredible events and webinars that are offered in several different languages to global communities. And they're all about how to use social media for social good. You have Janet Muck, an incredible human, biracial trans woman, who's an activist, a producer, a memoirist, and artist. She was the producer of the first show in history of American TV with an all trans crew, talk to people of color in the States. And then she wrote different books, and she does so many different things of trans and people of color, and she does so through activism and fashion. And then I was sharing an event at the International Anti-Colonial Summit, and I had 2 days sitting down with world leaders. We had events in 9 different languages. It was Guarani, Spanish, Italian, Haitian, Creole, French, English, Latvian as well, and I'm probably blanking on a few more. And we're all having conversation about how to decolonize our industries, whether it be empowerment, coaching, teaching, entrepreneurship, spirituality, God, gender, sexuality, and do so in a way that is accessible to people and elevates the quality of human conditions through innovation. So the idea is always the same. What is missing where I am? And what worlds can I connect together to then be the change that I want to see in this in different ways, right? And I'm putting this for you to think about.
Hey.
So when you think of where innovation can start for you, what your point of sorry
to stop you. I don't know, sometimes it does cut. Maybe if you want to continue, we can maybe close the camera so it would take a little less internet, but again, it's I know it's not the same vibe. I can also show your slides if you want. Or
perfect. So let's do this.
Love technology, but sometimes it's not working with us. It happened to me in a presentation talking about how to present online, and my internet just cut. So the joys.
No worries. No, that's brilliant. And anyways, I feel I was reaching the recap for this. Well timed, even though it's not ideal. So we're gonna make it work for us. And just basically recapping, right? So as I said, the questions always, what is missing? What can be enhanced? What do we need to challenge, disrupt, so that we can elevate the space? And in our